Hi, folks. My name is Tom Umile. I teach at Villanova University, and my colleague Jen Tripp and I have been working on this tool. We've been collaborating with Beyond Benign and ACS to come up with a tool to help instructors build effective green chemistry case studies. As Jane said, making a case study is not a trivial thing, and we want to help instructors be able to do it themselves. So I want to share some of this work with you today, and Jen's here to talk as well. Oops, let me get my slides. We'll start with a brief background on green chemistry and case studies. Probably needs no introduction based on the last hour discussion that we had, but we'll breeze through that. And then we'd like to introduce you to some of the tools that we built to help folks make their own green case studies. Then we'll move into a more interactive portion of our session where we'd like you to start thinking about what case study you might want to build based on an example, a real world example that you know, and then what you'd want your students to learn from that lesson. And so first, teaching green chemistry through case studies. As I think Michael said earlier in his presentation, the ACS now recognizes, thankfully, teaching green chemistry is important, and teaching green chemistry through case studies should be a standard part of a contemporary chemical education. The most recent guidelines for bachelor's degree programs specifically cite case study teaching as a requirement. Teaching with case studies is not new. It has a rich history across a lot of disciplines. Future business leaders, attorneys, physicians often learn through case studies in their training. More recently, case studies have become increasingly common in science classrooms. And folks have measured quantifiable benefits to teaching through case studies. Students learn their material better. They perform better on assessments if they've learned that material through case studies. Students feel like they're learning better, like they enjoy the case studies. And I liken this, educators, at least I feel, often like I'm forcing broccoli on my students. Like it's good for them, but they don't like it. Um, they don't see case studies as broccoli. They see them as something that they enjoy. And instructors anecdotally report that their students are more engaged with case studies. So there's a benefit teaching through case studies. Teaching green chemistry through case studies is really not a novel idea. 25 years ago, almost at the advent of modern green chemistry, the ACS had the foresight and published 2 volumes of real-world cases in green chemistry. These were books that took Green Chemistry Challenge award-winning technologies and distilled them down in a suitable form for classroom undergraduate teaching. In the years since, lots of people have created their own case studies. We just learned about the soy curriculum. Other folks have done this as well and published their own case studies. I have a selection on the screen just from JChem Ed. I'm not endorsing any of these specifically, but I just select them to show you there's a variety, a diversity of green case studies out there. And so to summarize, case studies are an effective teaching tool. The ACS tells us that we should be using them, and there are already a bunch out there. But what if the case study that you find isn't perfect for your classroom, your course, your teaching style, your students' needs? What if there's a topic you need to teach that doesn't have a case study out there? At some point, instructors are going to need to make their own case studies. And so that brings us to the tool that Jen and I have been working on to help instructors out. I think I'll turn this over to Jen.
Yep. Thanks, Tom. As Tom said, I'm Jennifer Tripp. I'm at the University of San Francisco. And when Tom and I first proposed this, we actually just proposed a 3rd volume of the real world cases. And then once we started talking about it with folks at Beyond Benign and the ACS, we realized that actually we could probably do something a little more useful for people, which is to build this template. So if you want to go on to the next slide, Tom. Yeah, so just to kind of give you some of our thoughts as we were going into this, we really wanted to broadly define a case study, just to include any real world application. In some of those other fields, like Tom mentioned, a case study is a really well-defined kind of, a thing that is used a certain way in the classroom and it contains certain information. And we wanted to make it a little bit broader than that. We also wanted to recognize that there's differences in scope and format and how people want to use these. Maybe you just want to spend 10 minutes in a class talking about something, or maybe you want a 2-week unit where you really embed the students in the chemistry of a particular topic. We wanted to emphasize backward design, really starting from what do we want the students to learn and then developing course materials to help with that. We wanted to have something that was focused, a framework and guidance, but also knowing that we needed flexibility so that faculty could implement this as they desired. And we also wanted it to be shareable because it's, we can all make our own case studies, but if we can share them, then we can make a lot more impact a lot more easily. So the next thing is, so what are the components? So we decided that the essential components that we needed to have were some defined problem that relates to chemistry and to green chemistry or sustainability. We might have a solution. If you're basing your case study on one of the green chemistry awards, then you probably have that solution. Maybe it's just a problem and you want to show your students that we don't have all the answers yet and that maybe, you can explore the chemistry and hopefully make a difference. We knew we needed learning objectives. That was one of the weaknesses, I think, of the old real world cases is they're these great stories, but they don't necessarily tie into your chemistry content always very easily. We needed background. We wanted to talk about impacts. And we also wanted to have questions or activities so that faculty could implement these in the classroom, without too much trouble. Hopefully we're tying those into green chemistry principles and sustainable development goals. That said, I gave a talk at my university a few weeks ago about this, and there was a lot of interest from people who aren't even in the chemistry department about using this template in their own fields. So, I don't know that we need to limit it just to chemistry or green chemistry. Some of them, you might want to develop assessments for your case study, but maybe not. If it's just a 5 or 10 minute example, maybe you don't need an exam question or some other assessment on it. And we thought it would be useful for other faculty, but not essential to have connections to other courses or topics where you might be able to use a case study. Like we were talking in the breakout rooms just now, how some of these could be used in organic and biochemistry and other kinds of classes. So if you want to point that out, that's great. But again, that's not an essential thing. What we do also think is essential though is references. So we need to make sure that if an instructor is using your case study, that they can have places they can go to ask for more questions. Go ahead, Tom. Next slide. Thank you. So we because we're doing this as far as backward design, we wanted to sort of lead people through the process for making a case study. So we have 4 components that have both a worksheet and sort of a user's guide that talks you through using these worksheets. So the first one is about choosing a topic. And these topics come from a lot of places. We'll talk more about that later. And then the second thing we have people do is write their learning objectives. And these can be both chemistry learning objectives as well as green chemistry or sustainability related learning objectives. Then we want to think about the outcomes. What do you want the students to know and how are you going to assess them on that? And then the last thing would be creating the teaching materials. And this is where we sort of have the most freedom, depending on your teaching style or what you want to, how you want to present this, how much time you have to do it. There's all kinds of options for that. So this is an example, and you'll see this in a minute when we share these files with you. This comes in 2 parts. So one side or one worksheet gives you kind of leading questions. So what do you want to teach? And then there's a box where you can fill in either by hand or you can type into the box your answers to these questions. And then there's a user's guide that sort of explains the questions a little bit more, gives some references, gives some links, some help for instructors who want to use this template. Tom, you should feel free to jump in at any time too, if you'd like.
You're doing great.
Is this my part too?
Yeah, if you introduce
it. Perfect. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna walk you through the first 2 parts of the case study. So I'll introduce choosing a topic. So I'll talk a little bit about it, and then we'll put you in breakout rooms. We're going to share the worksheets with you so that you can you start working on your own case study if you'd like, and then we'll bring everybody back and we'll talk a little bit about writing learning objectives, and then we'll send you back to your breakout rooms to work on that. Okay, so how do you choose a topic for your case study? Oh, that one didn't get animated correctly. That's all right. So anyway, you can just keep going through. Yeah, so like we said, some of the ones were the real world cases ones were on the Green Chemistry Challenge Awards. So that's a really great place to look. You can look in magazines and newspapers. There's ideas from CNN all the time. Nobel Prizes, I usually end up talking about whatever that year's Nobel Prizes in my class, whether it's green chemistry or not. You can think about household products or just personal care products or things that people use every day. The Scientist Spotlight Initiative is, I don't know if anyone's aware of that. It's based at San Francisco State University, where they try to highlight scientists who maybe aren't from traditional backgrounds that you would think of for scientists. So that's a good place to go for, sort of diversity, but also, really interesting science that you could highlight in a case study. Maybe your own teaching lab or your research lab has some good ideas for that you could bring to your students. The primary literature, of course, is a good spot. And the history of chemistry. Maybe you want to talk about some alchemy or whatever. The little boxes in your textbook are always a really good place for this, for ideas as well. And, maybe you're already talking about something in your class, but you just want to do it in a more formal way or a way that lets you better assess your students what they're learning about it. All right, next slide. Okay, so the idea with this is that the case study should teach the course content while also illustrating green chemistry and sustainability. I don't know that any of us have extra time to add into our classes in order to teach green chemistry. So we kind of need to multitask and teach the chemistry we have to teach while also teaching the green chemistry and sustainability. So if you click that button, so we have all this course content, right? I just kind of pulled some figures from organic chemistry, general chemistry, analytical chemistry, all these things that we have to teach. And then, Tom, hopefully we can do that within the context of sustainable chemistry or green chemistry or the UN goals or all of these bigger ideas. So that is kind of how we approach this, is trying to enable faculty to still focus on the content while presenting it in the context of these bigger ideas of green chemistry and sustainability. Okay, so in the 10 minutes, and I think, Monica, are you sharing the file with everybody? You should be able to get a file that has the worksheet pages for these two sections of the template. So what we'd like you to do in your 10 minutes is think about and then talk about what real world chemistry example you could use to create a case study for your course. And again, this could be something that you're already doing that you want to flesh out a bit, or it could be something brand new. Think about what topics from your course, the chemistry topics, relate to that example and how it relates to green chemistry or sustainability. And as a little incentive, there is this call for case studies that Beyond Benign has, and you can use that QR code to link to it. And they are asking for people to write case studies. And there is, I don't know if you want to say more about it now, Monica, or not, there's an incentive if you can write some case studies related to soy chemistry.
Yes, I'll share more about it later. But there is a link in the chat. Please make sure you download it before you go into the breakout room, because it will be hard to have it there unless somebody wants to copy and paste it there. But the rooms are open now, so you should be able to access your room and happy discussions.